ITX3 guest today is Mark Young, and he's off to the Arctic Circle. We're going to find out more about the film he's going to be making whilst there.
North of 60, then strange things happen. Over the years, some people, they start doing strange things, talking in strange languages.
At this time of year, in minus 30s, I think that's around normal.
Minus 30?
At least. I mean, it could be colder.
I think the coldest since I've been here was minus 55 for a couple of days. That was cold.
And by the time April rolls around, it can be minus 30 or minus 25 at night. But during the day, we get a lot of sunshine and it'll warm up. And most times, by that time, it may only be dark for 3 or 4 hours a night. By the time May rolls along, there's no darkness. They call it the land of the midnight sun.
And some people, they think that they are closer to heaven. They want to start levitating, They want to start flying or doing strange things.
The town of Inuvik, well, at that point it wasn't a town, but the site of Inuvik was selected in the early 1950s, and the federal government was looking for another town site to replace Aklavik, which had just gone through a couple of major floods. Because Aklavik's right in the delta, when the delta floods, so did Aklavik. And so Inuvik became the kind of model design town of the federal government. And so they, I think, initially located the site, which was called East 3, east side of the Mackenzie River Delta, and site number 3 in 1953, and then construction actually began in 55, 56, 57, and then now we have the town now. So it was incorporated as a town in 1970 and became the regional kind of center for the federal government at that time, and then later the territorial government, and now the two land claim organization, the Gwich'in and the Inuvialuit. With the Inuvialuit being the coastal people, Inuit people, In town, I think their numbers are, they're about a third of the population in town. So if our town population right now is 3,600, the Inuvialuit would be about a third of that, around 1,200 people. The Gwich'in of course, are the Dene people of the area, people kind of below tree line, and their population in town right now is, I think, around 450, 500 people in town, so less than what there are Inuvialuit.
In the old days, people would have used the words Eskimo and Indians. The Inuvialuit being of the Eskimo and the Gwich'in being of the Indian.
The rest of the population would be a mixture of other people from throughout Canada and in some cases throughout the world.
For a community the size that it is, it's quite cosmopolitan. There's lots of people of all different races and backgrounds and trades come up here to experience the North and have a sense of adventure, and I think that puts a different kind of spin on the energy of the people here. Well, originally it was a Quonset-style arena, like a hockey rink, that was built to be part of the residential school. It was actually built in the 70s. And then in 1998, it was slated for demolition along with the residential school for a number of reasons, including abuse at the residential school, and I think a lot of people just wanted to get rid of the evidence, you know, the school and anything related to it. So it was supposed to be destroyed, but there was a couple people in town, our current mayor, Peter Clarkson, and also Ron Morrison, were driving by one day, and they're both avid gardeners, and they have greenhouses at home, and they thought, hey, wouldn't that make a great greenhouse? Like, it's huge.
Which is a fairly novel project. I mean, it had never been done anywhere in Canada or North America or the world that we knew of.
And by July of '99, they had secured enough funds and had most of the work done that they were actually able to plant in those raised planters downstairs by the end of July. So from November of '98 until July '99, they managed to get funds, get it renovated, and get it working. So that's pretty amazing. You just need to follow these, just make sure they're both open, because I just heat one little section. Mm-hmm. And if I don't have all the other ones closed off, and I'll end up heating the whole greenhouse. And
okay, so you just want to heat part of the greenhouse?
Yeah. In the winter of 2000, they advertised for a coordinator and an assistant coordinator to come and run the commercial greenhouse upstairs and to coordinate the community garden. And that's when myself and a woman named Lori Huff came up in the spring of 2000, and she was the coordinator. And so she set up the whole commercial greenhouse. So I have it. I think I have it isolated. And then she left in the fall, and I've been running it since then. When it's below -10 outside, I can't even get it to stay at like 8 or 9 degrees up there. And I understand all the heat's going through the roof and stuff, but even that little area that we have isolated off, still at nighttime I can't even get it to stay above 8 when it's fully cranked. Yeah. Really? Yeah. It's our 4th season, and we've changed a lot of things. We've narrowed it down to doing bedding plants, and then we do a crop of tomatoes and English cucumbers, and sell the produce from that later on in the summer.
Yeah, my name is Norm Hanikina. I'm originally from Tuktoyaktuk. I'm from Inuvik descent. Inuvik from the Western Arctic. I come from Tuktoyaktuk. I was born and raised there. And all my life I've been hunting and trapping since I was maybe 10, 15 years old. And every winter I have a trap line and I go out hunting for moose and caribou and the different animals. I trap for fox and wolverine and wolf, marten, mink, lynx, whatever's out there. It helps to bring a little bit of food on the table.
It's not that long ago which people, depended on all their subsistence off the land, and so there's still a good mix, healthy mix of that. Definitely people have gone away from that, but there's still lots of people who, even if they're in the wage economy, will still rely on getting their caribou for meat and either fishing themselves or buying fish off some people who are fishing. So
I have a snow machine. What I'm going to do is just go through it from the front of the machine to the back, just to make sure it's running good. I try and keep it in good shape. You make sure your spark plugs are new all the time and your belt is brand new. The only thing I had to change on this machine since I got it is the belt and the spark plugs, so hopefully that should do for a few more years. It's a nice machine. It's really good on fuel and it's very powerful. I'm able to pull a big sled load with, probably I could haul maybe 10 caribous in this sled right here. And all my camping gear and fuel in the sled. I made a move from Fort Smith to Inuvik in June of last year, so it's come for 1 year now. And my family and I have moved here.
So you're a newcomer?
Fairly new.
Yeah.
I'm from the region, but I've my first time back in about 15 years. So it's kind of nice to be back to see familiar friends and family and closer to home.
Okay, everybody's okay. Time to go. Got your orders in your knife. Jump. 1, 2, 3, go.
There they go for the credible skinny contest.
Come on, you guys, cheer them on. Let them
Very good, 11 to 13-year-old boys there too. Fill up. We get 11 to 13 boys right now? Okay.
There is a few things that kind of crop up on a regular basis. Stray dogs are an issue in the north. It's everywhere you go.
Well, we tried to walk our dog one day, and he got viciously attacked by 2 other stray dogs, and we just felt that maybe there was something going on here that needed to be addressed. And I've been involved with the SPCA in Burnaby in British Columbia before, and in Williams Lake, BC. So I decided that it would be a good idea to have one up here to help out, so we formed one.
What the town has is an animal control bylaw, and within that bylaw it says that dogs aren't allowed to run around the town free, so they have to be either in a kennel or a run or chained up. And any dogs running around town free would be picked up by the bylaw officer, held for 3 days, and then destroyed if they weren't claimed. Now the town also licenses dogs, so if a dog has its collar on and a license on, we can then get a hold of the owner and say, okay, we've got your dog, will you come pick it up? What the town has found in the past is that probably 90% of the dogs that are picked up are never claimed by anyone. So people either decide, okay, it's cheaper just to get another dog, or they don't want the dog anymore. So what the town has had to do then, and we offer the dogs out for adoption, but again, you get very few people wanting to adopt any of these dogs that are picked up. So then the town hasn't had any other choice than to destroy the dogs. I guess the overriding concern would be if we had a bunch of dogs kind of roaming and running around the streets, they would pack up and then they would be a safety threat to any children or even adults in the community. So the town has a mandate to try to keep the streets safe and keep any loose dogs off the streets.
Do you have laws in place here where you prosecute the owners of these dogs, or?
We don't have laws where we would, because people won't even own up to being the owners in most cases. What we do, if the dog is captured and people want it back, there's a charge for that, and there's an escalating charge. So the first time it might be $50, then it's $100, and then it's $200. So eventually an irresponsible dog owner ends up paying a lot of money in order to get his dog back if he wants it back. If he doesn't want the dog back, then it's destroyed, and then that owner, or at least that dog, isn't loose anymore.
People have a different mind here than they do down south about looking after dogs. That for so many years they were working animals, and they just weren't given care as they were, as pets are down south. So
if you think back in time when everyone started here, all these people, you know, the great thing was the dog on the land, right? So the dog on the land was used for incredible feats, you know, for the family. And now it's wound down. The epitome of what's happened is a lot of the dogs have fallen short of owners that don't use them for anything, and they're just tied up on small chains. But the dog has suffered for a while up here because of the lack of its use. We started a program with sponsorship from Canadian North, the airlines here. And they ship out dogs for us on a weekly basis to Edmonton SPCA and Calgary SPCA. And probably over the last 2 years, we've sent out close to 600 dogs now. I just felt that because we don't have a shelter here at the moment, and we're not getting a lot of help at the moment for a facility or any funding. So I felt the most important thing right now was the emergency situation to get some of these dogs out. They still do shooting here.
What was the reasoning behind the decision to shoot the dogs rather than inject them?
The problem with injecting them is, and any vet can tell you this, that you have to have complete control of the dog because you're hitting an artery or a vein in most cases. Because the town is too small to have a veterinarian, and I was a biologist, I was a town vet for well over 10 years. And some of these dogs that we pick up are quite wild, and you'd never be able to get anybody to hold them still enough to get a needle into a vein in order to put them asleep. Putting a needle any other place, again, of a dog that's not restrained, there's more trauma on the dog than what a bullet would give. I mean, a bullet is definitely what's the right word? More traumatic, but to the dog, it's probably as painless as an injection. Because a shot in the head is instantaneous and done. I mean, the people that have to do that for the town, I mean, don't like to do that, and I think last year they did over 150 dogs.
You know, interestingly enough, the town has the euthanizing drug. They can use it. They just opt not to.
Do you know why that is?
They say it's expense. I'd like to see the shooting stop. I don't think it's, my personal view is I don't think it's necessary anymore because of the fact that we're bringing in the outside world. We have the technology now. It is a little bit expensive for euthanizing, but it's something that's there and it's available. And I mean, let's face it, being tied to a pole out in a back road and knowing you're going to get shot is not the humane way to go.
Actually the main entrance right here, but it's all covered in snow. So it's still kind of half decorated from our Halloween party in October. We have people who rent plots. They families and individuals rent plots, and they plant whatever they want. So this is the area that I eat out. Come inside. Yeah, so this is the little grow area that I use for roughly the first 4 weeks or so, and all the seedlings get grown here, and I start transplanting them. And as I start running out of room, then I have to move out of this area and use the rest of the greenhouse. But so every day I come in and lift this up when it gets warm enough, and then the solar heat comes in and heats it up, and then at nighttime, like about 9 o'clock or whatever, I have to shut it all down and turn the heat on, and hopefully it doesn't go below 5 degrees in here.
And does that come on automatically, the heating, or?
Yeah, it's kind of going all the time. It's just a matter of whether it can pump out enough heat to actually keep us warm. So yeah, this will look a lot different in about 4 days.
When I was growing up in Tuck, I remember back in late 70s, early 80s, for me trapping was a big thing for me. So I went out on the land with my dad trapping in the winter time and fishing in the summer and whaling. We try to do all that. Live off the land, so my dad taught me everything I knew, and I got 4 sons, and I'm teaching them everything I always taught. The method of trapping has changed. Back then, leg hole was a really popular trap to use, but now they banned the leg hole trap to a quick kill coney bear trap, which kills the animal instantly. So all the trappers have now changed over from the leg hole trap to the coney bear trap. And it was a really hard transition because a lot of the trappers were so used to using a leg hole trap. I think the younger generation has changed, took the change really easy, but the older guys, I know they had a hard time to do it. When I have a trap line, I'm out there at least 6 hours during the day, and I try to go and check my traps. It's the law now to have, you can't, 72 hours from the time you check your traps to come back. So you have to check them every 72 hours. In other words, maybe every 3 days. So when I used to trap in Tuck, it's different again. I had maybe 150 traps to check in Tuck, and I always bring my animals home, bring them in the house, and some would be frozen solid, so I had to thaw them out for a day or two. But the ones that are caught alive, they're still really soft, so you bring them home and skin them that night, skin them inside the house, and the process begins there. You have to skin the animal. If it's fat, you take the fat out with a knife, and you put it in a stretcher board. About 10 hours for the animal to dry, and you turn it inside out. Then that's one process, I guess. Now you have to clean the pelt. I usually brush it off, or sometimes some animals, white foxes anyway, they get lots of blood sometimes in them, so you have to wash them before you put them on a stretcher, a dryer. It doesn't take long though. A good half hour from the time you start skinning your fox till you put it in a dryer or stretcher, so it's not too long. I don't know if you can see here, but this here, it's called a stabilizer bar. And that has broken. Probably looking at maybe $60-70 to get that fixed. My front bumper, you're looking probably another $75 for that with all the accessories and stuff. So my ski rods here, I got to get those replaced. You're looking probably $200 there.
It's 35 degrees in there. Down comes the witch and up goes my hammock chair. Well, on the commercial end of things, I start plants at home on a rack with grow lights, and so I start the seeds there at the mid to late March, and then bring them into the greenhouse around the second week of April, and I just heat a small portion of the greenhouse, and then once I start transplanting and things start getting bigger and I have to use more space, then I have to heat the whole commercial greenhouse. And downstairs in the community area, things warm up so that it's safe to plant by the second week of May, and that goes until roughly the end of September, beginning of October. So they get a growing season that's about as long as you'd get in southern Alberta or Ontario.
I was quite quite disgusted and in shock because it is a little tiny shack with dirt floors, no running water, no cement. It's just sort of it's a little shed for disease, really, because they can't clean it, they can't disinfect it. And the dogs just sit in there in their own feces because of lack of being able to clean it. There's no water. So if your dog gets picked up and taken in there, the chances, if that dog hasn't got its inoculations from disease, parvo and distemper, might pick it up in there. It's important for people to see what's going on.
So do you take dogs directly from there, or do you get them from somewhere else?
Well, you would think so. After a dog is not adoptable there, if no one has claimed it, I would have thought the town would have liaised with me. But so far, no, I haven't got any dogs from the pound. They won't do that, and I'm not sure why. If their time's up, they just take them out and shoot them. Now they have a bylaw officer that they brought in strictly for shooting dogs right now, and he gets paid per animal. So you don't get a salary. You've got an incentive to go out and shoot dogs. You've got to pick up dogs. You're going to get lots of dogs for $25 a head. We put in, as a group, we put in a proposal to the town, and to one day, hopefully, take over the contract for the bylaw part of it, which a lot of places do, and SPCA's. The Humane Society in Dawson does that, and it works really well. It creates revenue. Having a Humane Society with a vet in the building and other links like a groomer and dog kennels, it's all revenue, and it cleans up the town. You got your spay and neuter program, you got your adoption. But anyway, we put this in to them and they turned it down. And they're now saying they're building a $250,000 pound. I'm not sure what for. It's not going to house any educational programs or the vet or anything else. It's just going to accommodate, I guess, the bylaw enforcement officers that take out the dogs to shoot them, which is a shame because we've been working really hard to get these programs in place. And all we need is an opportunity to have a facility to set them up. And the people here want it. There's an awful lot of pet owners. There's a lot of concerned citizens that don't have pets, that are worried for their children when dogs are loose.
elementary school has a plot and the high school has a plot. And right now, with the elementary school, one of our members, one of our board of directors actually, Ruth Wright, she's coordinating that. So it's kind of her after-school gardening gig.
The kids are learning all about gardening. They've planted all the peas and vegetables and some of the flowers, and they want results now. They want to take home their plant now. I said, no. You're going to wait till it grows. Once it grows a little bit, then we'll take them home, because some of them don't germinate. See, in this tray here, there was only, 5 of them that germinated out of 9, so...
Some more?
Our rhubarb's growing slowly, but it's okay.
Some more?
Yep, oh yes, fill her right up. Altogether, we have about 48 students. That's a pretty good class. That's good. That's good.
Wow, that is a lot. So how often are you down here?
Every day after school and on Saturday and Sunday as well. We also do pots, such as this one, and trays for different buildings and offices in town. They provide the trays and the seeds. We grow them and put them there, and they provide a barbecue or an ice cream night out. Or the kids are really having fun. This is my 3rd year in my plot. This is my plot. And by golly, they're going to name it the right plot by the time I'm through. I'm going to be a grandma plot owner around here. So, I'm usually the first person in this greenhouse with something green growing.
You know, it's kind of loose there, so it tells me I got a loose bolt. See, to go through it and just have a check, eh? I've never actually walked home from a broke down, but when I broke down, I've actually never broke down. What happened is I got stuck. My snow machine was still running, but I got stuck so bad that I can't get my snow machine out, so I had to stay put. I made a big fire for 12 hours, and help came and rescued me, so that was good. But I remember getting stuck in the summertime by boat. 3 of us from Tuck, we traveled to Hendrickson Island. It's a popular whale hunting area. We were going to harvest some beluga whale for the winter, and once we got to Hendrickson Island from Tuck to it's about 12 miles, maybe I'd say about 18 kilometers south, straight west of Tuck. We traveled to Hendrickson Island and we broke down. Our prop fell off the motor, so we spent 3 days and 3 nights on Hendrickson Island. No food, no shelter. It was snowing and raining and blowing a whole 3 days, and that's not nice to go through. You know, after you come out of a tough time, you're a better person. You look at life a little different, and my dad was taught always to help people, and you know, not to hurt or make fun of people or tease people. My parents, they were Christians, so we went to church a lot, and we were told to help people a lot, and you know, when someone needs a hand, you know, you give a hand, you lend a hand. Our belief was, you know, people that had no meat, you gave them caribou meat or fish. You always share what you have with people, eh? Because, you know, someday you might be in that situation or position where, you know, you have nothing, and maybe someone will come by and give you a hand, you know, so. It's better to, I believe it's better to give than to receive. You feel much better that way.
More and more people are growing things. When they lived in residential schools, all the grandmas and, you know, stuff like that, they all know how to do this, because they sometimes stayed away at school for years, and during the summer they'd have to grow things, mostly potatoes. Yeah, but they all knew how to garden. And then when they came back and they put in the new houses, they put gravel on it and took out all the whatever vegetation was there. And you go around and you see all this now sterile communities, gravel, pilings, house. No vegetation whatsoever around it. So now people are slowly getting back into there, because now the grandkids are coming home and saying, "Grandma, look at my little pea," you know? And they'll say, "Come on, let's go because they remember all these things. So now they're starting to do it more and more. Because when I was small, we lived out in the bush, and we had hundreds of chickens. And my mom had a big garden. She had potatoes and peas and carrots and cabbage grows really big up here. My dog Lassie had to pull me back from the water one time when I decided I'm going to go over and check what's on the bank. Thank God for dogs. This last couple of years I've decided to take back what was taken away from me. I'm learning my language. I'm going out on the land more often. I'm going to have a camp out in the bush. I did my first moose hide tanning course and I passed and I got my first moose hide. I did all by myself. Everybody said, you have to make slippers. So I said, no darn way I'm making slippers. They're going to wear out right now. I'm going to make a piece of art that's going to stay there forever. In fact, I'm just going to wear my hide around and sniff at it every so often.
We have about 120 members, and there's about, probably about 20% of those are Aboriginal. So that's encouraging to think that that part of the population is starting to think about growing their own food and not being, not having to go to the grocery store and pay exorbitant amounts for vegetables or whatever. I know a lot of people have gotten really used to eating canned food, and it's just not good. It doesn't really compare at all. But yeah, our Aboriginal interest is significant, and it's changed also over the last 4 years, because when we first started, because the building was supposed to be destroyed along with the residential school, there was a little bit of bitterness about it being maintained as a structure, and over the last 4 years I've seen a total switch in the perception of the place from the Aboriginal people in town. Just being able to use the building for something of a healing nature.
What is your language?
Gwich'in.
Gwich'in, I don't like Gwich'in.
When my mom was young, she had TB. She had to go to Edmonton, the sanitarium. Yeah. And she stayed there for 7 years. 5 of them, she was in bed. Because everybody from the Northwest Territories across the Arctic, the northern BC, and all the northern provinces right up to Manitoba all went to Edmonton when they had TB, and some of them stayed there for like years. So they all became a family. So, and the nurses and doctors were not very nice, because they told them, don't teach your children that language because it's a dying language and you don't want people to laugh at your children, so don't teach it to them. So when my mom came back, of course she never taught us. Her and her friends would sit there and talk together, and we'd overhear them curiously, considering usually that, perks up your interest and you learn it. But because it was so, don't learn your language, the dying language, lots of people never ever picked it up again. Chi. Chi is mosquito rock thread. It's all in the way you say it. Chi. It all sounds the same to me. I still haven't learned how to say it properly.
For about 10 years now I've been drumming steady with them. had an aunt that was well into. She was one of the main drum dancers that restarted in the area. So always had an interest, and just basically it started out with my children. With their interest and me going there with them, I just started dancing with them. I do believe it's in '82 it started back up, somewhere there, and it's been going strong ever since. Well, lots of it is made up by our elders that mainly were hunters and trappers, and just their experiences out on the land, and lots of it is about the animals. So there's how the animals react and how they actually behave, so they just imitate them. So it might be a certain hunting trip they were on, something that stood out in their mind, and they had to make a song about it. It took me a good few months before I actually got confident enough to actually start hitting the drum harder and getting into it, because every song is different. It may sound the same, may have the same beat, but in actual, when you get into it and singing it, very different. Very different. There's different speeds to it, different tones, stuff like that. It's basically just like a country song.
Usually we don't really eat any fur-bearing animals such as fox or marten or wolf or wolverine. We harvest caribou for food, and in wintertime there's ptarmigans, and we eat ptarmigans. And springtime is all the migrating geese. We harvest geese, and summertime's fish and whale. I think when I was just as far back as I remember, we just started to use snowmobiles that just started coming out. That was mid-60s. The dog team was still around, but it was being used less and less. And when I went on a trap line with my dad, we were using snowmobiles. So it was just starting when I started trapping. That was maybe 30 years ago. So for me, I've never used a dog team in my life, but I've had to rely. I broke down many times on the land, and I had to rely on having my snow machines always in good shape, all the time. That means checking them over from the front to the back, from the top to the bottom. It has to be in good shape. We sell all our fur. We sort of pile them up. We sell them to the Renewable Resource Officer, and they ship them out to the auctions down south, whether it's in Montreal or Vancouver to the west. So Edmonton was quite popular years ago. And Montreal seemed to be a good place for fur, where there's a lot of buyers, and the Asian people and European people buy, lots of fur there. Trapping is not really now a full-time job, I guess. Years ago it was said that trapping was a good thing, and I believe it still is a good thing today. You were able to, years ago you were able to make a good living hunting and trapping, and some people I know that used to make $70,000 a year trapping, but that was a lot of work, hard work. You're faced with the elements of cold and short daylights and travel, sometimes some people travel 12 hours, without taking a break. And then you're just traveling, checking your traps, and then comes evening, you feed your dogs, and then you got to skin your animals at night, and that same night, and get ready for the next morning. It was a lot of work, but they made a good living. Today, it's with oil and gas, prices so high, it's really hard to maintain a traditional lifestyle of trapping. I do it part-time. I don't have a job, but I'm looking for a job right now, and so when I'm not working, I'm on the land. I think nowadays things are made so easy because you got the snow machine. A guy could buy a big snow machine, and be out in a strap line in 4 hours, and he's already traveled 50 miles. Whereas a long time ago, 50 miles he would have to camp maybe 2 or 3 nights. So things are much bigger and quicker and faster nowadays. But the price of fur has dropped so low, and the gas and oil is so high. So it's you have to dish out a lot in order to get so little. So if you're really going to do it big time, or try to make a good living and go at it, you have to buy a lot of fuel, a lot of supplies, food, and parts for your snow machine. And nothing's cheap nowadays. And with the price of fur, it's hard to judge. It's not right, I guess. No, I can't say not right. It's hard to do. Just hard,
And there's an incredible program that I'm trying to link up with right now, and it's for children that have been abused. And they've done a lot of studies, a lot of research on children that have come from abusive situations, and even young adults that go on after they've been abused to hurt their own animals. And then they go on to even further that with hurting and sometimes ending up in jail over it. So there's a program that helps children to realize that pets have feelings too, and they feel pain, and there's other ways to relieve anger and not on an animal. And it was an abuse call, and it was a little boy who was beating up 2 dogs of his own with a stick, I guess a large stick, and clubbing them. So I got a couple of calls actually, concerned citizens across the street, and then went out on that one. My concern right now is the boy. Apparently he's 11 years old, and that's a sad reality that obviously something's happening to him, that he's doing that, to be so cruel, to take a stick and beat them like that, and kick them. He was kicking them. So with that program we put into the schools, I hope I see him, because he's the kind of boy that needs to be helped. He needs to see another side of it and get on with his life, and not feel that he has to be doing that sort of thing.
I mean, there is like a huge dropout rate in high school. People actually come here and they want to give the youth a youth center, and the youth destroy the youth center.
I think there's also concerns and issues, with substance abuse, with alcohol abuse, healthy lifestyle choices, that the community has just because of the relatively short time that the community's been in existence, the short time that people have have had to change their lifestyle from being land-based to being more town-based, and and all the associated problems with residential schools and that vast change, to a dominant culture.
Some parents around here, they drink, and that's their thing, and they'll do drugs or something, and that's just what they grew up with, and that's what a lot of teenagers are like. I mean, there's someone who knows someone who's committed suicide. I think it is high rate, actually, in the north, which is sad.
I went out hunting quite often every year, hunting polar bears, and only once I was successful. Again, you have to wait for right weather, and you're not guaranteed what you're going out for. So it's like, if I'm going hunting polar bear, I don't know if I'm going to get it or not. So I go out anyway, go and take a chance. But each trip is not a wasted trip. You see, each trip you make, whether you get a polar bear or no polar bear, that trip is not wasted because you gain valuable experience from the next trip. One trip you might get nothing, but then next trip you might do it a little different. Maybe a little easier. Maybe the weather might be on your favor, or you might do something a little different than what you did last trip. So I look at it, each trip we gain experience.
Not last year, but the year before, we didn't realize how crazy our sales were going to be. And I didn't even ask anybody to help me. I just thought, it'll be fine. There's a few people will trickle in and buy plants or whatever. I didn't advertise, nothing. And I had a lineup of almost 100 people out the front door. But we're the only place in town that grows bedding plants. So yeah, we just try something new every year, just build upon it every year, something new. So last year we were able to put in a bit of a composting program, and this year we're going to finish working on our classroom.
It died off, yeah, with our elders coming over. It actually started out in, we get a lot of Alaskan elders that came across, and they brought the drum with them. But we had drums here also too, but it just kind of integrated together. But there was a lot before, when they used to stay in the camps, a long time ago, before they had communities. Everyone used to stay in their own place, and then when they gathered together, that's when they started drumming and bring their songs and learn new songs that they've basically made out while they're out hunting or something. So it is lots of old songs in there, and unfortunately there's a lot of old songs that are gone now, because the guys the elders basically took them with them. They didn't learn anyone. There's talks of elders knowing of a song but not knowing exactly what it is from another elder. So there's a lot of songs that's unfortunately is gone.
Sad.
That is very sad, and that's the sad part about it, that there's more and more songs that's gone, and unfortunately the elder that passed away, the song also passed away too. It's unfortunate, but we've tried to revive as much as we could, but you only can do so much. I'm actually working on one right now. Yeah, the theme of it is going to be the 4 seasons. I do a lot of hunting, so just basically taking out the best part of the hunt, and hunting polar bear, hunting geese, stuff like that. But there is other songs that the people in the group made their own songs, and it's all just things that they like the most recent one is made by Debbie, and it's she talks about eating the whale tail after when they're pulling the whale in. After they get the whale, a delicacy is the whale tail. So you know, we like it so much she made a song about it. So
excellent, I love that.
Yeah.
Is there any temptation to add like more I don't know, like a totally different subject like skidooing or something like that into the songs, or is that not really the damn thing?
Funny thing, you bring skidooing up, because there's actually one we just made about skidooing and how happy you are when you're driving the snowmobile, but then on the other side of it, when the snowmobile breaks down, then you're stuck. You don't know if you can't get it going, you got to walk. And that's unfortunate with a snowmobile, but a long time ago, that's why they use dogs. They don't have to worry about it. The dogs can keep on going no matter what. But there is a song about snowmobiles. Yeah, funny you bring it up, but yeah, there's just different. It's basically different different happenings of each person. You know, it's they make their songs up of what they actually life happenings. So yeah, there's more and more kids being involved, which is good, because they see the thing about it is it's the shyness of it. Like the kids want to do it. You can see them standing when we're practicing. You can see them standing in the hallway or on the side, following the kids that are out actually performing. It's just they want to do it. They like the song. They like the beat. It's that they're shy. They have to break that shyness. And once they see other kids doing it, and popular kids doing it, then more and more kids will show up. And that's what's happening. You know, that's the whole idea of drum dancing, is passing it on, learning the songs. So.
In Tiak, I've been up there for a few calls. I've dealt with the police up there in a few abuse calls. One example would be pulling a dog off the ice, excuse me, that had frozen to the ice at about 45 below. Lost his left leg to the ice. Had to be put down, of course, and probably been out there for a bit before we got to him.
Coming back to Inuvik in the past, after being away for about 15 years, it's changed a lot. Things have gotten, more expensive. Living is really high. The cost of living is high, for your house or your rent. Food prices have gone up, oil prices have gone up, so it's hard to make a living here. After being here for 15 years. So, I think I got to move. It's too expensive. Further north you go, you got to fly things in, so it becomes more expensive, eh? Food, and oil, and living. So it's pointless, I guess, to move or go further north. I'd rather live where it's much cheaper for the family,
We had to do a call in Inuvik. We have an area of town where dogs seem to be shot by people, and it's too bad. I don't know if it's out of desperation. A truck driver actually ran into this. He was out in the bush and he came across 2 dogs tied to a tree, and one of them was dead and the other one was basically skeleton, but he was still alive, and he had a gunshot to his head where he'd lost half the cavity on the back of his head, so his brain was exposed, and we had to put him down. And that was probably one of the hardest ones I've dealt with, because that dog stood up, wagged his tail, and was glad to see us, and we couldn't do anything for him. We phoned the vet, and it was, you can't do anything for a dog with a brain exposed like that. It was all infected. He'd probably been out there for a few days, and that's why he was so thin. And he wagged his tail right to the end, and that took us a couple of days to get over that one. It was very sad, very emotional, very draining. I've seen some horrible things, and I wouldn't want everybody to see what I've seen. And sometimes I don't even like to talk about it because it is horrific. But that's the sad reality of what's happening up here. And so, yeah, it was really, really sad to see that little guy suffer.
That everyone would come into the different towns, would come together, and we would celebrate. And this kind of reminds me of those days, and it takes me way back.
My dad had his own company, so we traveled all over the place, all to just about every community in the Northwest Territories down here. But Inuvik's my home. I went to Greece for 6 months. My ex-husband's from Greece, and I loved it, but there was no darn snow there in the middle of the fall, for crying out loud. It was November 1st and there was still no snow. And I don't care how cold it gets. If there's no snow there, it just don't feel right.
You're really exposed to the best and the worst that the North has to offer. And it is a real, it's a magnification, really, of what you see in southern communities and more, I guess, civilized communities. The people you meet here are also magnifications. They're characters, and a lot of them larger than life. And down south people are so cookie cutter and normal and sterile, it seems. Up here everybody's a little bit closer to the edge, you know? A little bit wilder, and it's always interesting, you know.
They come up here and they go to school. Sometimes they only stay up here for 4 months. Sometimes they stay up here for 4 years. And the kids that did go to school with us up here, they've gone back to different countries and travel around the world. They go to college and they come back here to live, because this is practically the only town they feel at home, because at any time of the year, you can go out there and find people from over half the countries in the world. And they live right here in Inuvik.
If I grew up here, I think I'd say I loved it, but it's not home to me.
There's so many people that come and go. You meet so many nice people. The only bad thing about that is that they leave. It's a very transient community.
And I was in Calgary for a short time and was doing work there, and then saw the job up here, so thought that would be a neat experience to get into. So that was 3 years ago now that we've been up here, so probably 2 to go, and then we'll be done.
Well, I like it. It's a great town. Like, you know, I lived here just about all my life. I don't think I'll ever leave, and the people I know that are friendly, and people smile at each other, they say hi to each other, you know. So just about everybody knows everybody, so we get along great here.
When I go down south, I miss it. Being up here, it's just, there are things, conveniences and things that I like down south, entertainment things and the shopping and stuff that I enjoy, but I don't think I could ever leave here.
Well, in July, end of July, my wife and I are planning to go to southern Alberta, a place called Lethbridge. They have a nice University there in college. I plan to go to college there and take a renewable resource management program. It's a 2-year program. And Carolyn, my wife, she wants to become a nurse, so she's going to be busy with that, her studies to become a nurse. And I'm looking forward to it, all my wife and I, but the boys, they're having a hard time because they've made friends here within a year. You know, it's hard just to pick up and leave, and it's going to be a big culture shock, I believe, for not only myself, but for the rest of the family. But it's for the better. We're looking forward to it.
You planning to move back here once the course is finished, are you, or are you not sure?
I'm not quite sure at this moment. Wherever I could find a job. In the north, it's very expensive to live in the north. For the food and gas, price of gas and living, it's high. So I don't think we'd maybe come north after that. Find a place to settle down in southern Alberta maybe, after all the schooling's done, and hopefully find a job.
Does that mean the end of your trapping work?
It's hard to say. I guess for now, the next couple of years, I'll put it aside, put it in my back pocket, and concentrate on education. And it's always going to be there. Like I know how to hunt and trap and live off the land, and I taught that to my boys, my family, and they just love the wildlife and the outdoors. And you know, it's going to be hard for the next couple of years because you know that was our lifestyle. But you know, you can't just stay that way. You have to make plans and change, and hope for the best in the future. I got to change my, it's called a stabilizer bar. It's under here, so that has to be changed. My front bumper has been cracked and broken, so it has to be changed as well and get it all ready for next year. Actually, get it ready for sale, I guess, now, because I don't think I'll be taking this south with me.
Once we finish renovating our classroom, we'll be able to put on more workshops. We do workshops right now, but you know, have that be more consistent and have different maybe guest speakers come up. We're hoping to perhaps one day put in a kitchen so that we can do cooking and canning workshops for members or people in the community. And maybe use our classroom space for yoga or just healthy living stuff. I mean, we may want to expand one day or put another community garden in town somewhere else. We have a waiting list of about 30 people usually every year, and so it would be nice to be able to accommodate more people because there's quite a demand for the space.
Education is always, like I tell not only my boys but young people, education. You put your education first, and you know, you shoot for the highest. You got your dreams, you follow your dreams. And my dream is to become, I don't know, maybe a polar bear biologist or a wolf biologist. So I'd like to set a good role model too for young people. I'm not getting any younger, so gotta start. You know, it's never too late for education.